Alright. It's already starting to record. And this is a continuation of aids in doing orthodontics. I'm Dr. Bill White, and we're trying to record some of the things that we use in a lecture, and this would be added onto a group of slides there we call aids in doing orthodontics. Now, these are little alligator clips, and I figured out how you could take these and make them into clips that you could use to transport your brackets, and this is still a very good thing to do. You put a bracket on each one of these clips. Now here's the way we make the clips where they hold brackets where they won't actually slip from your hand and drop them and stuff like that. We just put the brackets in the clips. So let me go back here just a minute, and we bend these little ears down so they don't poke you. Like you don't mash this together with one finger down here and one up here, and these things would poke you in the finger. So we bend those over with just a universal plier there. These are universal pliers that I've used for years and years. They have two steel inserts in them that you can see coming along here, and they come down to 1/4 of a millimeter at the tip. I mean, that's really small at the tip, and they have held up for years and years. So if you get pliers that stay for a long time, have the two steel inserts in them. That's just another help in doing orthodontics. So we take these things and mash this together, and that pushes it down where when I can push this together now without those little points coming down hitting me in the fingers down here. Now we'll take these and we're going to bend them down kind of like that, and we take a small tip plier like the tip of a durable plier, and we'll catch it right on the end with this durable plier off out here. You can't see it, but these are very hard steel tips on that, and this is very soft metal, and so I can tip these things or bend them like that quite easily. And we'll want to bend this other because they come out right touching each other on the end that way. So we take the other side, bend it down, and these aren't touching exactly. You can take this and square it up with that universal plier if you need to, but just so those ends are very close together. Now we can open this thing by bending this down from the back, and these arms will go out like this, and we'll have space in between here, and we put the bracket in that gap. So here we've taken the plier, opened it up, and stick these right down in the ears of the bracket, you see. Now if you take one finger and put it on this side and one on the other side, you're mashing that together, and just leave this thing clamped on there. That bracket can't get away from you, and you won't lose it at all. Now you can take your bonding material, whatever you're going to use, and we put it on the back of a little flat toothpick and just smear it on the back of this bracket and put whatever you want on it. If this is a light cured bonding material, you can put it on there, and you'll have time to put a whole bunch of them on, and then you can straighten them out and get them just like you want them, and then take the light and harden this material. So looking at it from the side, when you're using a twin bracket, this material is wider than the gap in the twin. You can just put it in the center of it, Now these little brackets had vertical slots, which we pushed a pin down through, a little T thing that we could make hooks and things and just slide them on those brackets very easily. And that was a very good portion, or a good quality of these brackets. Now you can use this same deal for any anterior bracket. You use this. That's like actually cuspid to cuspid. You can use this. You go straight in with it, you see. Put it on the tooth, juggle it around like you want it, and when you get ready to turn it loose, you mash the back of it, and these things just move down, move out of the way, and you take it off without juggling your bracket or moving it. Now if you get off and you look at it and say, well, I've got to adjust it a little bit more, sometimes you can take the back of an Explorer, just put this wire down in the Explorer curvature right in here, you see, and you can push the bracket around with an Explorer. Or you can take this device that you put the bracket on with it and grab it again and move it and push it up against the tooth tight. In other words, you can push this thing this way and you can squeeze the material out from around the base of it, you know. Now if you come in and take a small pointed instrument and take the excess off from around the bracket, and if you've moved it at all, you can grab it again and shift it around and get it in the correct location. You see, you want to put that bracket in a certain place on this particular tooth, and then you'll want to have it where the arch wire slot is the same height and everything on another tooth. Now if one tooth is longer than the other one, then you drop this bracket slot down the same amount of distance that you have here, that this tooth is longer. These are just some little tips on sticking brackets in people's mouths. Got to get rid of this. I don't know. Alright, we're back to normal. We'll have to cut that out when we're fixing up this to put together. Alright, now when you go to the bicuspids, you know, your mouth is, you know, only so wide in here, and you can go straight on, say your centrals and laterals and cuspids, you can put them on with a straight one. But when you've got to come back around here to your bicuspids and molars, then you need something that can come in and put the bracket on to the side like that. So we take this same little old thing, and it's a Alligator Clip, I call them, and they were made in Japan, and I used to go down and buy so many of these darn things, and I'd take them to courses and let people bend them themselves, you know, and learn how to make them. And I bought so many of these things, they were looking at me like, hey man, that guy's smoking marijuana or something. He's got a class teaching them. Thinking, you know, that's what marijuana smokers put by these things and stick them on the marijuana cigarettes, so I hear. And so we could take them, and you can twist this soft metal, just bring it out like that, just by grabbing it real firm right here, and just twisting it. You can see how small the tip of that plier is, and that plier is years old, and it's been used for thousands of arch wires, and that tip is still just as firm and good as it can be on there. So now we're gonna take it and we bend both sides of it, and then we've just got it turned out to the side like such, and two of them, you take that small nose plier and bend those tips down just like we did before out there, and now we've got it these bent, come in like that, Now you reach in, put one finger here, one on the other side, put your composite on the back of the bracket, mash it in there so this composite goes down in the little mesh very good. And now you can just slip this under the cheek, or take a mirror and wring the cheek out and go back and put it on the bicuspid tooth. And the bicuspid tooth may be something like this, and you can adjust it like you want to. And you can take this thing off and hold a mirror out here and look at it and see if you want to change it. If you want to change it, you can come back, grab it, move it another position a little bit, and you can push it with this. You can push this in this way, and that squeezes the excess out on the side of the deal right here. And you can reach in then with an explorer tip or something very small and take that excess off and wipe it off on a gauze or something like that, so that you don't have a big ring of composite sticking out on the tooth there. So we clean it off, and it's real neat, and it'll stay clean like that. And that helps you put it on the bicuspid. Now, when you want to tap it on, of course you don't have any cheek sticking there. Your cheek would be covered this part up. You can reach in there and put it on, and you can then hold a mirror over here so that you can look straight at that bracket, and you can tell whether it's in the center of the tooth or whether you want to go up or down or however. And if you want to change it, you can go back. After a while, you get to where you put it on pretty much in the correct position, or get it correct enough to where you can treat the case with it, you see, like that. Now when you get them like you want them, and we just harden the brackets. We may harden them in different sections, not maybe wait. Don't leave these stuck on without it being hardened. While you pull the cheek, you may bump one of these and move it, you see. So we may harden them at different 2 or 3 times during the placing of the brackets. Now we take these, and you can get they're cheap, you can just get a whole bunch of them. It's just time consuming bending these around like that. Now if this is a molar, but I don't think we've got anything on here except just the centrals and the laterals, and these are cuspid, and I don't know why I didn't have a straight one, but you can put a straight one, or you use a cuspid with these crooked ones, or you can put it on with a straight one, whatever you want to do. But they're neat. You hook all your brackets up like that, lay them out on a little magnetic strip. This is a little strip that comes out of the insulate on your freezers or your refrigerators. You've got this plastic strip that's really folded up, some way like this, and it'll have this plastic in this magnet here, which grabs your refrigerator door and pulls this together, so it makes a good seal. In other words, you can slice that through that plastic and take these things off. I had to change one of our doors here recently, and I got a whole bunch of this mess. And so now you stick this down on have this little lid here, you see, that we put our brackets on. You just stick that on the lid, a couple of them, and we can put the upper arch and the lower arch and have all the brackets sitting there, and you're not going to bump it and knock one of them off. These are stayed on with a magnet. It's not strong enough to really pick up the whole bunch. You can reach over here and grab this one and it'll come off, but it won't shake off if you just bump this tray. You see, it'll stay in place. And so this is a pretty neat way of putting your brackets and getting them out where you can get them on the mouth in a hurry and won't get them mixed up. You've got them straightened out, everything, before you start. And so we'll have this little, let's see, this is just a little plastic deal that closes, and we keep toothpicks in here. and then we may use whatever bonding material you want to on there. It doesn't make any difference. We get the best one we can possibly buy, and we were used when you mix concise up. You only had just a few, just about a minute. You had to get that on the tooth, so you couldn't put but 2 or 3 on at a time. Now with your Ligature stuff, you can, well, if you wanted to, you could put half of them on and harden them and come over and put the other half on if you wanted to. So different ways of doing them. You try it out and do whatever's comfortable in your hands. So that's just a way we developed to put brackets on the teeth, and it worked pretty good. You can use it if you want to. If it doesn't solve your problems, figure out another way. Now we put separators in between teeth where we're going to come here and bracket these, and we'll want to put a band. That's a 6-year molar, and that's a second deciduous tooth, which normally we won't bracket that thing because it probably won't have any roots to speak of right now. But if it had roots on it, we will put a bicuspid bracket or something like on a deciduous tooth. And in some places in the world, they don't think you should ever ban deciduous teeth. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, if they've got good roots, well, shoot, you could band them and use them for anchorage and stuff like that. They work fine. And of course, we could bracket this tooth, and here's another cuspid coming in. I probably wouldn't bracket it now. Now we may want to put a bracket on this lateral and the centrals and the lateral, and that bie's not in far enough. We might stick one on here, you see, just to have some support between this bracket and your lateral bracket. You got to have something in there. You might get this down, or you might extract this tooth and bring this one down in the mouth further before you actually start the case. It depends on what you want to do there exactly. So anyway, we've separated this mouth. Now here, there's no question, no problem with this at all. We've separated. We band this, and we'll bracket this and this. And we could stick a bracket on this one. You could bracket practically all of this if you wanted to start off with, and using a real flexible wire. Well, it doesn't make any difference. Just bend around and go in and catch these and go down to this one and come up and everything. So anyway, we put these separators in, and they kind of swell up and they expand, and you've got plenty of room, but you have to remember your band's probably going to go down past the contact of the 12-year molar that may be in here real tight. And if the 12-year molar's up real close, you want to pop a separator down here with some dental floss. I'll have to show you how to do that. But if you open up a lot more than you need right here, and you want to take this out, there's a big gap in there, then this 6-year molar will move forward enough, usually where you can force the band past the 12-year molar there, and go ahead and put the band on the tooth where you want it. So here's a little setup. We getting ready to do this. We're just picking out the bands. Larry White, a fellow that I teach with a lot, is orthodontist that teaches in the Baylor, has a ring guide set up for bands. It's just a steel tube that comes out, and it's got different sizes on it for rings. And he can go take one of these Tofflemeyer deals and put it around the tooth and squeeze it down, then slide it down on this ring deal is where it stops. Then he can read the size right here, and he knows that size is certain size for, say, this is Armco's bands over here. So he'll know almost exactly what band to get to stick on the tooth. So you don't have to dirty up a whole 3 or 4 bands figuring out which one you're going to put on the tooth. You just take this Toffelmeyer, puts a little stainless steel band on that thing and wraps it around the tooth and squeezes it down, slips it off, has to have enough slack to come off and on and off. Now take that, slide it on this bar, and it'll tell you what size actually it's going to take, and then you go to that size and take a band so you're not picking out or dirtying 3 or 4 bands going to the mouth. And the bands are all in keep them neat and clean, and if you do try 2 or 3 on, put them over there, and then you sterilize them and put them back in their respective places in that tray. And just don't drop the cotton picking tray. Sometimes we have dropped them or knocked them off of the bracket table or whatever you're on, and oh God, you gotta take every one of them and clean them up and then go back and get the size and put them all back in. It takes somebody about 2 or 3 hours of work to put the bands back in there, so make darn sure you got the lid on when you're not working with them. So anyway, we pick out the band, and now when I took these pictures, we didn't have to have gloves and all that stuff on, and a lot of times we didn't have Larry's thing either, so we just took a band and looked at the tooth, and after a while, after somebody bands a lot of teeth and puts these bands on, they learn pretty good how to do that. I don't know whether that's Pam's or Tricia's hands, but they banded so many teeth like that, so they get pretty adept at picking out which band it's gonna use. And back when they first came to work for me, it was back in the early 70s, and we had to band every cotton picking tooth in the mouth, and orthodontics wasn't as much fun as it is today. We stick a few bands on and then bracket everything on there. It makes a whale of a lot of difference. It's so much better to bracket than it is to band, except that the bands don't fall off as easy as the brackets can be chewed off. Anyway, they pick out a band, and they when we used to band a lot of teeth like this, we would mash it down with our thumb and go through the contacts. We'd have a good open space in there. You can put the band down, and if it's tight, you have them bite on a little thing, and this little bite block with that deal fitting on the bracket there, and pushes it down and set it over here and push it all down, get it down fully in position, and then they would we'd have the brackets all picked out as we're going here, and then I would come in and check the bands. Sometimes I'd have to push a little more force on them. If you got good thumbnails, you can put your thumbnail on one of them, and even with gloves on, and you can push them down with a amalgam plug or something like that, till you can get them where you know that the band is fit. Now the tooth may be shaped something like that, you see, and this band is going to fit that tooth somewhere along in here, you see. Now for the band to get down to this point, the band has to be this big around, so you're going to have a little ledge open on the end of that band down at the bottom, and you squeeze it on there. Sometimes you can go in on one side and push the other side down and come out with this a little tighter down here. But when I cement the band on, regardless of what it is, when we cement it on, you put your thumb over this band with the cement, and you put pressure, really put a lot of pressure on this cement that you're going to use, and you'll push it down around and come out around the bottom of this band, you see. And then you get it down and you trim it off, and where we use this light cured cement. We have to come in and trim that extra off of the band and then harden it, so you don't have a big gob of composites. A bonding material on the tooth. You got to clean it off and then harden it up before you do that. And then you have to clean out the occlusal surface sometimes. If you don't, you're going to have a layer of composite, bonding material on top of the tooth, which may be fine. In some cases, you might want it. Okay. Now we push the band down, and you've got this tooth, you see, this sitting here, this bell shape, and the band has a certain position. It goes where it's got a bunch of curvature here and here, and it fits down in that place. You see how tight it will be, and bands that are made good, and the side of the band is usually curved like this a little bit, you see. So it fits down, but this part's going to stick out slightly down here at the base, and if that's under the gum, it'll push it out down under the gum. So you have to kind of go in there and clean that out when you cement the band. So anyway, the ladies would get them ready, and then they come back, put the cement, and I'll come back and cement the bands. Now I used a flat amalgam plugger that's kind of got a tip on it about like that, you see, and I could push up into the side of it and crimp it into the little grooves on the tooth and use it to push down. And sometimes I put the head of this thing down on the edge of the band and put your thumb on this part and really get pressure on this thing. If you banded a lot of teeth, when we used to have to band all of them, my thumb was I had such a thick callus on the ends of my thumbs that they'd be cut and pressed in there until you had a pad on the end of your thumb on the tissue covering your thumb, and you could push these cotton picking things with a lot of pressure, and it was not near as much fun having to band all the teeth as it is doing orthodontics with the brackets. Now, what we would do when we get the bands that we want, usually the young ladies working with it will pull the bands off and take them, and this is a wax bat that heats the wax up, and we use a hard wax, usually that beeswax we make the little arch wires with. We can melt a piece of that into this thing. This is liquid melted wax, and if you just poke it down very easily, the deal's sitting in here, and the wax will just kind of, the surface tension, and you can push it down, and your bracket will get covered with the wax, and the wax won't run over on the inside of that band. It'll just flow over the bracket, and that covers this bracket. You don't have to worry about getting cement in the grooves or anything else. So we use that all the time, and people have kind of gotten away from this, but it's still much better than taking something like a chapstick and putting waxy stuff over this. You can't wipe it onto this band where it'll on this bracket where it'll stay like this wax float on there. It stays on there, and so we would flow that wax over the bracket tip, and then you put it out on the deal. Now nobody uses cement anymore. That like for a long time we would mix our cement out here on a frozen slab. Now this is about an inch thick chunk of nylon, and you could buy a big slab of this stuff about that thick and saw it up into blocks and use it for cement slabs. And you'd take one out of the freezer and you could put cement on it, mix it up, and it'd sit there for 15-20 minutes, before maybe a half hour before you had to use it. Now these brackets, if you look at them close, which is hard to do with this, they're covered with wax. But the wax is not inside the band. If you make a mistake and get the wax flow inside the band, then you're a mess. You've got to take that band and go in there in a flame and heat it until the wax just completely evaporates out. And don't anneal your band to get it off the surface of the inside of the band. And most of the bands now are etched on the inside, so cement sticks to them better. And of course, we're using light cured cement, so you don't have to worry about that. So anyway, if you do want to band them with cement you mix up, we had to do it on a frozen slab. Is a neat way to do that. So here we would have the band covered in wax. Now see, we waxed these little cleats. This is an upper band which have these cleats, and you see the wax covering them. This is still real good, and I don't know why somebody else had to come up with a wax heater. Like, you can plug this thing in, put wax in it, and then you can dip your brackets in that wax, and you don't have to worry about getting cement down in a hole or in one of the grooves or anything else where you have to clean it out. It's a lot quicker and simpler to do. Now we would take this and put it over the tooth, and we used our forefingers a lot, and if we could get to it with our thumb by bending it back and pushing on, we could get more pressure on it. But you got your forefinger so toughed up to where you could reach in there and press it. Now you want to get over the top of the band with your finger and seal the cement off, so that when you put pressure on this little mound of cement, it pushes it out down at the bottom. And so you'd see it coming out down at the bottom. You knew you had cement all the way down in here. And you push it, and then you can come in and take an instrument, just push one side or the other side down. But to properly cement a band, you have to force the cement out at the bottom of the band. And then you know that it's cemented. And as long as that band stays cemented, they're not going to get any decalcification under here, you see. Now if you push it down there and you've got a void, and you've got a big chunk of this is no bonding material at all in there, then you're going to get acid up in here, and you'll have a decalcified area on that tooth. Or if you let the band set in the mouth after the cement breaks loose and the band's bobbling around in there, you can get all kind of trouble with a loose band. You can have a person bite some kind of food off that's hard. The band will cut a little sliver of it, and it'll go down and come out under the gingival tissue. Say the gingival tissue would come up around the band, and so the band is under here, and it would push this food down under the gingiva. And I've had people come in with a darn abscess gingiva simply because they had a loose band. So learn how to pull on them and look at them and check them when they come in, so that you don't let a kid go off with a loose band in their mouth, or a kid or adult or anybody else. But about half of the stuff we do now is adults, and so you need to keep up with that. And this is why I say, these clinics that are running kids through and running patients through like cattle in a chute, they don't look at a lot of this stuff, so they get more decalcification and all kind of problems in there. So anyway, we've seated these two bands, and that's the way we set up. You just run the cheek out to the side, and this is the I guess we're using some kind of composite. Oh, we're cleaning the teeth up prior to going in here, so you take a little pumice. I like to use pumice without fluoride in it and go over the teeth. And it's even better if you come back on a situation like this, take a sand blaster and go in and blow and etch the surface of the teeth that you're going to bond brackets. It's even better than that, but we would clean them up with pumice all the time, and this is Bond that we use, and primer and stuff. So this is something you put the primer on the bracket, and this is where this sticking the brackets on these things really help. You can come in and paint the primer on a whole bunch of them. Then you come in when you're ready to seat it, put the composite on it. Now it's got light cured stuff, it's a lot better than that, but here this is just how you deal with it. Now we'll come in here and etch the teeth and wash and dry that off, and now we'll come in and seat these bands, and you can take your mirror and see what position the band's in and everything. And if you learn how to do this, if you just do enough of it, you'll get to where you can do it quite efficiently and quite fast. And we could band, a case up, band and bracket the case, and get the arch wires in there in a fairly short length of time. Now we use multi-stranded wire. You can see this wire's that what we call Wildcat Wire. I don't know who named it that, but it's just several strands of a fine, tough steel woven together, and it made a very flexible wire, and it's still good, even though I like say an 016 nightie, whatever you use, nitinol wire, but you can bend a groove in this nitinol wire, but you have to, if you're going to put a groove in it, you got to catch it here with a pair of pliers, and you bend this wire way back like this, and you can make a bend and stay in it, and then you got to bend the heck out of this, and then you have to bend this one a long way to get a little loop. You see, we want an expanding loop or something like that on nightie wire, because we want this to open the gap. So you can use 016 or 014 nightie, or you can still use this stuff. Is still good. We call it old woven wire. Works wonderful. Now I use this this is a good back plier. You can bend these loops and stick them in here and crimp them down. You can cut wire with it, and it got these little, now this is 2 steel inserts, and this plier is years old, but this is straight on this side, you see, coming back to the back with it. And you can bend real small little loops and stuff with this part right here. And this 2 steel is tough as a boot, and it'll last for years. Whereas regular steel, if you get a plier that's milled completely out of steel, then this is not 2 steel, see, and they wear out quite fast, you see. And some of these pliers nowadays cost, they'll be $80 or maybe $100, maybe $110. I don't know. It's ungodly the price that you have to pay for them. But if you get a real good one, then the thing will last for years and years. The problem today, say if you're operating 5 or 6 or 7 operatories, you got to have 3 or 4 sets of these pliers for each operatory, and that means, you got a whole stack of the blooming things, and you got a lot of money tied up in pliers when you really go in there. You got to sterilize one and get it back in service there real quick if you're operating, say, 6 chairs in here. Not that you have that many people in all the time, but you'll be using pliers on them. So anyway, they're expensive as all get out, but if you get real good ones, they hold up for years. Now here we grab a piece of that Wildcat, and one side of this on the gearback is squared off, you see, and we bend it down here. So now we'll catch and bend it up on this side and then bend it back like that. Now we come down, and if we've made this bend, we catch it here, the width we want, and then we'll bend this up. Now we'll catch it over here and bend that down. Try to get it where the both legs of this are in the same plane. And we would used to get dentists came here to the house, and we would have maybe 15 or 20 or 25 dentists, and would bring the ladies from the office, and we'd sit outside and bend wire, and could teach people how to do it. It's very difficult, and they don't even get you don't even taught to bend it very good in orthodontic school. So Larry tells me that a lot of the boys getting out of school go out and take a Tweed course out, and they bend wire for about 2 weeks and learn how to bend it pretty good. Now here we sketch this edge over here, and we bend it back in that direction. Now you do the same thing with a piece of nitinol wire, but let me go back and show you. Now if you're going to make this bend hole right here, you got to bend this wire all the way and go back down in this direction, bend about 2 to 3 times further than you want it, and then you let it back out, and it would come to this point, you see. But you'd have to sometimes bend this wire around and even come back in this direction to make it stay here. But you can bend the Wildcat wire, and you can bend this darn near any of it if you really want to. And we've got such fabulous metals nowadays. This heat activated metal is just unreal. You can make your arch wire actually fit, and you stick this thing, get it ice cold, you know, and you can bend it like spaghetti and tie it into a tooth. So sometimes we would make little icicles by freezing water in tubes where you had anesthetic, and thaw that out, or just a little tube that's full of ice, you see, and you can hold that ice up on that wire and get it cold. Then you can put any bend you want to there, and it'll just make something like. And then if you take it over there and heat it up, it'll just pop out and straighten out. Just bend them and then take them, put them under warm water, and the wire just will pop right back out straight. So it's fabulous for starting cases like that. Now this is good too. Now we come in and we'll put this, or we'll make one bend over here and push this back against the molar tube. Now this is where it's going to go through the arch wire slot. You see, this is the auxiliary tube we've got here, and then go back here, and you put this in before you even go, and you've got this just running out straight. Now you take the patient, have the patient take 2 of their fingers and hold this wire in the bracket slot, and then you take your other finger and fold it back and push back here and mark where you want to put the loop here. Now if you want to expand it, you put a mark right at your molar and then bend the loop back over the molar bracket, you see. Then you take the wire out of the mouth, and you see I take my finger, the patient's holding it in here, this is on a typodont, and I push this back and I put a little mark. Now you don't have to bend it on the mark, but the mark you can say, okay, I want to make this bend 1.5 millimeters or 2 millimeters in front of the mark, or 1/2 millimeter behind the mark, or where you want it. So if I'm going to expand the arch, I'll have this loop, and I'll bend it. This loop will come up, say something like this, and goes on out the back. So when we come back and seat this arch wire in the mouth, alright, so we've got these 2 loops bent. This loop right here say the molar tube is right here. This is where it's going to go into the molar bracket. Goes back from here, but our loop is behind there. So we put this one in on the other side, right where it ought to go. And now we come in and we run this back through the molar tube, and then we tighten this, we stick it in, and now our arch wire is about 3 millimeters out in front of the teeth, out in front of the bracket slots in front of the mouth. So we start at the front and then tie it in, tie them over, it comes in, and then when you get back here, this loop has reduced just about like that, you see, sticking in there. So the arch wire itself is pushing forward because you've condensed this loop on this side, which was this big, maybe, or maybe a little less than that, but you've condensed it down to about like that. So you've got a spring in here. You're using this loop kind of like a spring, and it's shoving the arch wire forward. It's pushing this arch wire forward all the time. And you can put that little thing in there, and it'll expand the dadgum arch. Just leave it alone, and it'll expand it like mad. Now you don't want to expand it with a deep bite and run these lower anterior teeth into your upper anterior teeth. That isn't what you want to do. So you open your bites before you put all this expansion in, so that these teeth don't run into your upper anterior teeth at the same time. And so, what we've got here, oh, that's that wax pencil I made, that mark right here on that, and we bent this little loop. Alright, we stick this wire in, and these loops are back in here now, and this was made too long, you see, and this wire is out in front of these teeth like 2-3 millimeters. Now on this typodon we don't need that much expansion. This is just to illustrate this, but we'd have a bunch of crooked teeth in here, you see, and we need a good bit of space. So we figure out how much space we're going to need, and we make these loops that big, and we go ahead and put the wire. We can make the wire out of the mouth. You don't need any wax pattern or anything else to make this wire. Make one side of it, hold it in the bracket, mark the other side, and make this loop back here, so you've got as much space in this loop as you need to straighten up all these teeth. That's the thing in a nutshell. Alright, I stick it in back here, and naturally the arch wire is going to stick out here, but it's a real flexible wire. So we go in and push this back and tighten it, tie them down, and in between each tooth, if you looked at it very carefully, you've got a little bow in between each tooth. You'll have a little bow, and these loops will be condensed about half as big as they are, and this loop is expanding, and you've got these little bows in between each tooth. And I'm not pulling your leg if you're not used to this. That will expand anybody's teeth. I don't care how old they are or what you've got, you know. It'll expand them unless they were all ankylosed or something like that, which isn't very likely to be. This will expand just darn near anybody. So you don't want to put this expansion in when you've got your upper centrals coming down something like this, and your lower centrals are sitting way up in here like that, and you expand these and they run into your upper teeth here, and that causes these teeth to be real sore. So the person holds their jaw backwards, they keep it back, they don't chew with it like this, and so they can crowd the retrodiscal tissue on the mandible at the distal part of the glenoid fossa back there, and create a TMJ problem simply by putting expansion in the lower arch. Now people don't realize that. I mean, they can do this, and when people say orthodontics has no effect on the TMJ, it's just about as dumb as you can get, you know. If I stick an expanding arch in a closed-bite person on the bottom. And I've had this happen. I mean, I did this one time on this lady, and just a few days she was back in the office. Her TMJ was hurting. And some people don't know what the heck they did, to make it. So, well, orthodontics doesn't have any effect on my TMJ. That is just a bunch of bull. So you can create a TMJ problem by expanding the lower arch when you've got a closed bite. So you want to open the bite first, and the bite opening ought to go prior to the expansion. So if this tooth, if you're starting, as you start to open the bite, this tooth will go back this way, and you have some space in here. Then you can have your expansion going while you're opening, as long as you don't bang these teeth, the lower teeth, into the upper teeth, you see. Now, I don't know whether that's gotten through to everybody, but you can listen to it over again, but that's a fact. I mean, you can create a TMJ problem by expanding the lower arch when you've got a closed bite. Now, you can expand it if you're in a process of opening it, or you can come in and put some pads on the teeth. If you've got a low angle case, you put your pads back here on these teeth, and it'll, take it back. Not if you've got a high angle case, you put your pads back in the back. If you've got a low angle case, you put the pads up here, and that lets these teeth float, and they'll erupt toward one another, and you'll open your low angle case, you'll open your vertical dimension that way. There's just a lot to starting a case, and if you don't know some of this stuff, you can screw the thing up royally by just sticking the brackets on and putting an arch wire in there. So people need to go through something so that they know what's going to happen when you do something to the teeth, what's going to take place in there. So this is going to expand, there's no question. And now on this type of I don't need the expansion. If I just had a mouth like that, which you probably wouldn't even be doing orthodontics on it. But anyway, you would not do this. You line it up, and then you're going to work up in your arch wires as quick as you can get a good stiff round wire in. You put that in, and then we go to rectangle wire. Now, we finish most of our cases in a 17-2-5 rectangular wire, and we're using 018. Write it again, 018 slots in our brackets, you see. Now, you guys with the 022 slots, you use different size arch wires than that. Okay, we go ahead and here we bracket, we tie this down to these teeth. Now you see this big bulge here, going back to the back. Now we'll come in and hook these up and these up. Now if you look at this really close, you'll see that it's going to have a bow between each tooth. The arch wire will have a slight bow between each tooth. Now when we get it all tied in, this loop that was way out here now is reduced down to there. And let's shove this end out a little further. Now you may want to cut that off back at the back. And this is an expanding arch wire. Now this arch wire does all sorts of things, and a lot of people don't even think about what it's doing in here. But it'll help rotate any tooth. If this tooth is rotated, your bracket will be sitting over here or something. It'll start rotating that tooth to the correct position. If this tooth is taller than this tooth, it will level from tooth to tooth, all over the arch, all at the same time, like that. Now, if this tooth is lingually located back here, and this one's buccally located, it'll pull this one forward and push this one backward. And so it corrects them, the in and out, the lingual labial position of the tooth. It it's correcting that all at one time. If you're expanding an arch, you're pushing these teeth forward, and they tend to lay out or tend to push them out, and it's going to put torque in these front teeth, and it actually torques all the teeth. It lays them out buccally. It doesn't move the roots out at the same time, you see, but it tips these teeth forward, so you're torquing all these teeth if you're expanding the arch. Now, it doesn't take a real deep bite. It's something where the lower anterior way up like this, your bicuspids are down here. It doesn't level this thing out as quickly, but what we do, we come in and put a intruding arch on top of this, and we can have this leveled out with the molars pretty quick after you get them lined up, if you're doing it with a couple of arch wires here. So this little wire does a whole host of things in there. Now, if the teeth are tipped wrong and you put the bracket, say if the tooth is sitting in here and it's got a tip this way and you want it to be straight up and down, then you're going to have the bracket set correctly on the tooth. So this wire has to dip down and come up and come in another tooth. It will start tipping that tooth in the right direction if the bracket is on the right. So we've mentioned probably 5 or 6 things already, and that happens. So your whole arch expands. Now if you've got a tooth that's completely blocked out in here, and there's an impacted tooth in here, you can add some coil spring on the arch wire. You can put it on there, and it can be expanding, pushing this tooth back and this tooth forward, and your expansion will come in the arch wire, and it will be located in the spot you wanted. And all this is being done by a simple little flexible wire that's put in the mouth. I mean, there's a whole host of work. Now if your anterior is up a lot higher and you got these teeth are biting into the gum at the top of the mouth, we put the auxiliary intruding wire on there, and we can have that case open by the time you even get them straightened enough to put a hard enough wire in there to do that. Now there's some question about these new arch wires that come out, and they're actually bowed like such, and you put those in. They're very flexible, and they start doing these other things, and they start pushing these teeth down. They also push the molars down. I don't like that part, but sometimes that's not too bad, and you can put one arch wire on and level the case pretty good with that. Now you want your bite opening to go ahead of the expansion. If you do that, then you won't be pushing these lower anterior teeth into your upper anterior teeth. If you let the bite opening, in other words, you're pushing these teeth down with an intruding arch, at the same time you're expanding this. Now the intruding arch pushing down on the tooth tends to flare it out too, see, so you get a lot of things expanding and tipping your teeth forward. You may not want to do that tip, so you have to make your intruding arch into a rectangular wire. As soon as you get these teeth, you put reverse torque. We'll have to show you that in a little more detail. So it gets pretty darn complicated after a while, and to fully understand it, I don't want to discourage you from doing orthodontics. You can do it, and don't think because you're a general dentist or a pedodontist or somebody that hadn't gone through orthodontic school, you can't learn it, but you can learn it. And you can do excellent orthodontics if you just come in. We've got some good courses in the AOS and I guess in the IAO too. I've taught in both organizations. But here this little wire does all of that. And you can put it on in just a matter a few weeks or a few months. I mean, they'll just be better when they come back after a little bit. Now, to get down to looking at this real close, on your 6-year, this is a lower band, and we have a conventional arch slot right here, lower molar band, and we've got our auxiliary slot right here. It's a tube, and that's a tube, and I've got 18 thousandths brackets here. They're 18 thousandths. It'll be 018. And this wire here, I think, is 17 something big after about 3 wires are twisted together, but it's very flexible and still very good wire to use, but you can use the nighttime wire if you want to. Now, if you build this when you get it engaged, this loop is coming over here and coming up like such, then it's got that much pressure on this loop, so this wire is pushing out on that all the time, and it'll expand the arch. You just put it on there and you just leave it alone, and it'll expand it. Now, now with a flexible wire, you don't have to do this, but if you got a stiff wire in here and you've got a second molar back here, it's a different height, and you've got to put a down bend or something like that in the wire, then you've got to convert your 6-year molar. So you need to learn how to convert them. They have a strap that's put over the bracket slot of thin metal, and that makes it a tube, and you put something in there and kind of work it, and you can peel that off, or they make a gadget for about $150 or something. You put it on the back and it'll drag something through there and peels that off, or you can make you one out of a barred Parker number 12 barred Parker blade and stick in there and just work it up and down, and you can take it off there like opening a can of sardines or something like that. So anyway, we've put this thing in. We've got that much expansion in that wire, you see, so that arch wire is going to try to come back out here. Now here we've worked up, and we've got a stiffer wire, say an 016 wire, and we're opening a gap here for this lateral. Well, you put a spring in there. You can put this spring on a piece of Wildcat wire where you've got a short place, and it'll work. Now, if you've got 2 or 3 teeth in there and you put this Wildcat wire and you put a spring on it, I've got this will put a spring. Now I've got to go back to show it. We'll put a spring in there. If you got a long space, then that wire will kind of bulge way out. Now I've got to go back this thing. Now my little deals change colors. Alright, it will bulge this wire out like such if you got a big space. So you don't put a real flexible wire, you don't put a spring over a long distance to expand. That's all it means in there. On a short distance in there, you can put a spring on the Wildcat wire and it'll push the teeth over too, like that. And then you hook this up. No more than this, we would have bracketed all these teeth and just run the wire in there, you know, and that is expansion itself, you see, because the wire's crooked in here. As it straightens out, it expands, you see. And so just having the wire tied into crooked areas, the shortest space between is a straight line. And if you've got teeth that are in and out, as they straighten up, there's expansion already in the arch wire, even if it fit when you put it in. Now, for years, we used this torquing turret, and you can still use it. And if you want to mess with torque in a wire, this is a very good instrument to get. And we bought this from different companies. I think this may be Armco put this one out, but I think it's I forget the one now that we you get these things from, and they're better than this one. They put the arm goes under a lip out here so that this isn't prized up. Now they put 0 degrees torque in this slot, 7 degrees in this slot here, 10 degrees in this, 13 here, and 16 is the maximum that they put in. And you can take a straight piece of stainless steel wire, and it'll have no torque. And what we bought our wire in 14-inch sticks of wire, and used to get them for about $1 a piece. I don't know what, and you can get them made now a lot cheaper than that. But we would cut them in two. You don't need about 7 inches for an arch wire, and we put that on top of this in the slot that you wanted to do, and just spin it out and come out with an arch form that you could kind of change whichever way you wanted. Now when you put this wire in there, you want to make darn sure you got your 25 thousandths this way, and then this course here is 18 thousandths. See, so this is an 18 thousandth slot. This is for 18 thousandths wire and smaller. And you put it down in that slot. Make sure your this is 25 thousandths deep, and you want to put the wire in right. If you try to force it down here, you're going to either wallow this out or tear it up or something else. So you put the side, the wire's kind of like that, and this goes down in the slot. You see, the slot will be like such, but it'll be even up here. Now you have to hold the wire on one side and spin this around on the other side, and so we spin it both ways. That's not showing you really how to do it. You got to really hold that thing to go down. No, so we would spin off our arch wires, and then you put whatever exactly arch form you wanted, because you worked off of a wax pattern. And we bought this wax, and this maybe other companies, and I don't mean to be selling one company over the other or anything. I don't know whether there is another company that puts out pure beeswax, and it's just dead soft wax, and we buy that in boxes, and you can cut one piece of beeswax in two, and it'll make an arch big enough to form the base for the arch. We take the beeswax, put it in a person's mouth, and just press on it until you can see the bracket tracks in the beeswax. You see, you press on it, push it in, hold it in position, and make sure you mark the center of it, know exactly where it is, and I can see the second and the first molars and the bicuspids and everything going around like that, and press it down, and then you take it out of the mouth, but do not flatten it out. Leave it with this what curvature you have in it. Just don't flatten the thing. Now we come in, we want to put some loops in front of the molar band back here. Then we mark this where we're going to put this loop. Now you can take a piece of arch wire now and conform it over here to this side, and maybe I wanted to do a little expansion with it. I could just squeeze it down and put the arch wire, has to lay right in the track of the bracket like that. And honest to God, you can bend this darn near any loop you can think of right off of this wax pattern and stick it in the mouth, and it'll fit. And it'll fit in the mouth if you get the thing located. Now make sure you've got the center of your teeth, and you mark the center of your arch wire there. So that if you're making one loop, you build a loop here, you put it back in position, and now you make the next loop, and it uses up the wire that's sticking out the back. And you usually put whatever loops you need, and never get more than a 7-inch piece of that, you see, until you come up. Now then we can bend our in and out bends. And by the way, I think I made a mistake of you hear people talk about first order, second order, and third order. Well, the in and out bends we put in an arch wire, that's the first order bend. And if you put tip in a wire, in other words, you come to place and you want to tip this tooth, you may make something like that in it, so that you tip the tooth in that direction rather than this direction. Then this tip we put in is called a second, in the second order bend. Now when you take the arch wire and it's going along with a certain amount of torque in it, you see, and you twist it at some point in here, you twist the wire or put torque in it so that you got to twist it down and push it into the slots. You put torque in the wire, that's the third order bend that you put in it. And that's one that a lot of people don't understand, how to put torque in the arch wire. It's just, it gets a little complicated for them now. So here we have put the arch wire in there. We mark where we're going to put our loops or whatever we're going to put make an intruding wire or something. Now the very best plier to get for bending loops is a Tweed loop forming plier, and I think this one was put out by Freedy, or I can't remember the company. But it's got a little metal part that comes out here. You got a little Allen wrench up here. You can unscrew it, take this thing out if you were to break it. But that thing is so tough, I don't remember ever just breaking one off. You may lose them, and a couple of those come with a plier, and they fit down in a little groove right here. And that is the best plier I know of for making loops and arch wires. So you put a mark where you want to put the loop, or you know where to put it. So we're going to make the loop starting at that mark and coming back. I don't know exactly what I'm going to bend here, so let me go back here and see. So we catch it, and then you clamp to, and it's going to push this down in this groove, and then you're going to take your finger and bend the loop that goes in this arch wire, you see. So here we take my finger and I bend it up here and hold it real firm right here. Now this part is just straight, and it'll go down in that groove actually. And now we're going to bend it over here. So we'll take it. Now I change the position of my plier and thing. I put the plier over here, and I'm going to press on it, and I'm going to bend it around like that. Now we bend it, and now we've started this loop. Now we'll continue going around. Now at this point you have to make a decision. Am I going to take this part of the wire and run on this side of the wire, the back part, or am I going to run it on this side over here? And whichever side you run it on, it's going to make the loop a little stick out to one side, about the thickness of that wire. So I'm going to decide before I start bending it's best. Now I'm pressing with my finger. If you'll notice, that wire is buried up in my finger. I can feel the pressure I'm putting on that wire as that goes around here. Alright, now we wrap it on around, and we made a decision. We went on this side of the loop. So now this loop's going to be out this way further. Now we're going to have to bend it all the way and have it go up this, straight up from there. So we push it with a finger, you see, and we're holding it with a plier. We're bending it actually with your fingers, and you can feel the pressure you're putting on it, and you can know about what's happening in there. So we come on around. Sometimes you have to move the plier, and now this is going to end up straight up in that direction right there. Now we get it straight. So this is come in here, went around here, and went up like that, and then we change the plier, put it over here, and then bent this portion going out here. Now we've got a loop here that has a lot of kick to it. So this should have been, we move the plier around to here now, and bend it down. You see how much that wire is pressed into my thumb, or that's pushing the wire down, and we're holding it right up here. Now it's just a little closer up to give you some idea about it. And we've got a loop like this. Now if you're going to work with this, say this goes around to this side, and you put another one of these little deals over here, and say you activate it. If I want it to be an intruding wire, I would catch it here and activate this part down right there, you see. And we put that in the molar tube, then you have to bend this up. So this wire is going to be pushing down on these teeth with a pretty darn good force out there, you see. And it'll open the bites while you're thinking about it with just putting one single wire in there. So anyway, we bend this loop, and there it is. Now if it's absolutely necessary for this piece of wire to be in the same plane as this, you can angle this loop and have this piece running in the same, stick your plier in here and bend this one back here and bend this one out that way, and the loop then will be kind of catty-cornered. It'll still work, and you can have this piece of wire in the same plane as this part that's in the anterior part of your loop. See, now this, if I've had many dentists come in and show them how to bend this wire, or their assistants, or whatever we're teaching in there, and you show them a loop and you give them a piece of wire and tell them to bend it, and invariably they'll bend like that. They'll just take the wire, make a loop like this, and come out. Now if I'm wanting this wire, if this comes out here and back over here and comes up, and we come over here and we have this, and we want this wire to push down here, if I raise this up, I loosen the loop up, and now I'm asking the wire to close up, and I'm asking this loop to close itself back where it doesn't want to be anyway, see. Now in the case of this other loop, let me get a little better place and I'll show you that again. Now if you just are doing this and you activate it down here, and you activate this up here, and you want it to push down to open the bite, then you loosen this loop. When you raise this up, it loosens this up, and you're wanting this loop to tighten itself, which it doesn't want to be in there anyway, see, and it just won't do much for you. But if you take this and bend this loop this way, and now come up here and go around and come back and have another one over there, and now I activate this. When I activate it, I raise this up. As this comes up here, it tightens that loop up, and that makes the loop tighter than it was. So the molecules in there, they want to be like they were, and so they try to expand, and they will push down with a lot more force than one that just has a loop like that. And that's, you tighten the spring up and it loosens, you see. You don't bend the loop and then activate it by loosening the loop up and want the loop to tighten itself up. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not, but that's the way it works. And if you're going to expand an arch wire, you can run one like that and come in and you condense this. Then this loop wants to get bigger, and it'll push on this quite hard, you see. Now if I wanted to close a space in the arch, let me get rid of that and I'll make another one. If I want to close a gap in here, and I run around with an arch wire like this, come on the other side and put a space, I've got a gap in here, and I want to tie this back on the molar and pull this loop back so it'll open up wider, and I want to close a space. I want the loop to tighten back up again. It just don't work very good, you see. Now I made a grammar area there to impress you. It just won't work right. Now if I want to open space, or I want to close space in there, if I made this arch wire and I came down and I came back like this, and now I come on the other side of the mouth, and I come down, and I come back up, and I come over here. Now when I tighten this up back here, I make this smaller, and that wants to open back up again, and that is a much better closing loop than this. It'll just work much better than that. So these are some things you need to learn about wire bending. Now I don't mean to talk all day on that thing, but anyway, we put that back on our wax pattern. We grind it down so I can slip this in the molar tube, you see, and it's rectangular, and I'll slip it in the molar tube, and this part's going to be going down, so we're going to activate it. I mean, I don't know, it's about 35 or 40 degrees, you know. We're going to put a lot of activation in this thing when we put it in. Now we come back and take a wine guard plier, grab this thing, shove it into the auxiliary tube out here and push it back. The loop doesn't, it'll work if it's here, if it's here, or here, and you clip the end of it off so it won't stick out and poke them in the cheek or something like that. Now we come in and stick the other side in, and when it's setting in the mouth, this is way down here. Alright, so I want to intrude these teeth. I bring this up and attach it, piggyback it on top of your other arch wire. You can actually slip this one into the bracket, your conventional wire, and then you bring it on top of it and put your elastics over both of them. And now these teeth are going to start going down, and the force that's pushing them down will be this molar right here. So if you pull this up, it's going to tend to make this molar cock up and move back here. It will push down and tilt these teeth out, and so it'll tend to form space in the arch wire too. But if you got somebody that chews real good right here, they'll hold this molar down in place while these teeth are intruded. And you can open somebody's bite with this rig right here about twice as fast as if you just run a regular arch wire through and straighten this up till you can get a stiff enough wire in here to come in and put a reverse curve in it to get it to level the bite. Now this arch wire that you run in that goes up like this, comes around, that may work similar to what this intruding wire works. I've not used that enough to really tell you I know that it works or not. Now if you want to tie it to the front part of this, you have 2 or 3 teeth up high. You tie it to the highest teeth, you see, and it brings them down. You want to tie it to more than one because you don't put all this force on just a couple of teeth up there in the front part of the mouth. Alright, we tie it, and you take this soft, this is a 010 ligature wire, and it's soft stainless steel. Put it over there, tie it down, and it'll make a kind of a little loop, a little oval shape, and you twist it up tight like that, and then when you get it tight, you can come in and push it down, and it'll pop over, and then the twisted part will stick to the back. It'll go to the back, and they won't get it in their lip. Otherwise, if you just cut it off right there, man, and you push it down, you don't get it popped all the way back, then it'll pop back out and be digging in their lip. So we clip it off like that, and now we take a director and we'll push this, and it kind of rolls it into the wire, and then bing, it'll just be sticking out to the back like that. You see, this oval part will make it go out to the back. Now it won't bother anything poking out there, except it'll catch food and junk. So we've got it tied on like that on an arch wire with a little bitty flexible wire that's doing all those things that we mentioned a while ago. It's doing all of that, and then this wire is leveling the bite. And this can be all put on at one time, starting the case. If it's a real deep bite and it's a low angle case, we put a pad on the upper, bond a pad on the upper teeth, or put a flipper in. If it's a low angle case, that's what we do for low angle. If it's a high angle case, you come in and bond some acrylic on top of all these teeth in here, and they're chewing on this while these teeth are going down, and the occlusal force keeps these teeth from coming up, and so you don't open the bite skeletally while you're opening the bite dentally. That's the main thing. On a high angle case, you don't want to open it skeletally for anything, because if you do, it just gets higher, and that's what's wrong with the case to start with. So here, this intruding arch looks something like that, tied on with a flexible wire. Now I have no loop on this tooth, so we weren't trying to expand or do anything with it. So here's an upper one and a lower intruding arch, and this is this just works. If you want to open a bite, you can open it while you're just talking about it with just a single wire. If you're trying to get in a heavy wire and put reverse curve in them, you got to work up to it, and before you even get there, you've got it open with this device, and it speeds up your treatment, and that's no lie. And when they come to you and tell you, oh, if you get this bracket, man, we can do orthodontics so fast and so good, and it's so much better, and all this bull. Now that's just a big lie, You can do just as fast with any kind of bracket you got in there, This idea of slipping past and this to feed you a bunch of bull to get you to buy a special type of bracket. You can do good orthodontics with darn near any bracket if you want to. Alright, here's the intruding wires, and it opens the bite. Now, you just remember, you want the opening, you want to have this going down, this going up, run ahead of the expansion. You don't want to be expanding these lower anterior teeth into the back of the upper anterior. That is a no-no plus. You can come down with Tmj problems and all this crap about orthodontics having nothing to do with the TMJ. That is a bald-faced lie. And orthodontics has a lot to do with the TMJ problem. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can have a TMJ problem come at you, and you may not know why on earth it happened. But that's what takes place a lot of times in a lot of these cases. Alright, so here's the intruding wire. This is just some different views with a flexible wire tied in. Now here's a stainless steel or a NiTi wire in there. If we didn't need any expansion, however, we've got some expansion built in this one. It could be an Untitled wire. It may be a soft, small stainless steel. For us to make this kind of bend in it, it's going to have a lot of effect. Now, if this wire wants to go right here, then it would raise this tooth up too high, unless this wire has a bend in it right here. I'd rather see this come out and have another bend and come in here, so it's passive. When you put the second molar band on and the first molar band, you want to look down and have these slots the same. If one of them is lower than the other, then you ought to bend the wire to go through that passive, because you want to hold this incisal edge of these teeth right at the same level as you go back. So we virtually always band the second molars in our treatment. The upper molar will fall into whatever you do with this one. And so in many cases, we don't have to band this tooth as long as it's buccally, lingually located okay. It will usually fall down on this tooth and work out without even banding that tooth. So there's no need of banding it if you don't have to. Now, I think this is the end of our deal on aids in orthodontics. I hope I haven't talked your ear off, but we're going to stop here, and I'm going to push this F10